Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tzadi Tes, Daf 99 of Pesachim. So the Daf begins with more stuff about like Korbanos getting mixed up with each other, like we discussed yesterday. But what's particularly exciting is that with that we conclude the sort of kind of like I was saying yesterday, apparently you could divide Pesachim into like two parts. Well, with that we wrap up part 2, and then we move on to arvei Pesachim, which is the last chapter of Masechta Pesachim. And what can I tell you? It's pretty great. So let's do it. And it's not like a particularly large daf. I'd say the entire daf is probably like the size of an amud or something. So let's see what this looks like. We're going to start on Daf Tzadi Ches. 3 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Omer loen ve'omer lo, ochem and arishon, lo omer loen ve'lo omer lo, ein nachroen ze la ze. Nu, who could remind me what this means? So let's read it again. Omer loen, if he said to them, ve'omer lo, and they said to him, right? Remember, so we had this very large Mishnah yesterday, and what we said in the Mishnah is that if he said to that, right, we were talking about a group, they all signed up for a Korban Pesach, and then the Korban Pesach got away. So one guy says, all right, I'm going to go look for it. So if he says to them, hey, if you don't see me, if I'm not back, then slaughter, just get a different Korban Pesach and include me. And if they say to him, hey, bro, if you find it and you slaughter it, include us, well, then they get into a bit of a mess, because what happens is that whichever happens first, right, if the fellow finds it and slaughters it first, so then everybody joins that. If they go and just buy a new one and slaughter it, and he's included in that one, and that happens first, so then everybody's included in that. But if they don't know, then nobody can eat the Korban Pesach, because now, like, nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows which one was slaughtered first. So, speaking too much and creating these complicated situations leads to situations where you get nothing. Whereas if he didn't say to them, if he never said anything to them about including him, and they never said anything to him about including them, if everyone's just doing their own thing, if he finds the Korban, he'll slaughter it, and he's got his own Korban. They buy a new one and they slaughter that, they got their own thing. Well, in that case, there's no dependencies. Nobody's reliant upon anybody else, and whatever everybody does is just fine. Mikan Amru Chacham, from here the rabbis said, the wise people said, Yafa shtika lachachamim kavachom l'tipshin. So we see that silence is a very good thing for wise people, and certainly a very good thing for foolish people, right? We see if you just keep your mouth shut and you don't make fancy conditions about, you do this for me and I'll do that for you and all sorts of complicated things, you end up having more wiggle room, because you just, whatever everybody does works for themselves. Shenemar evil macharish chochem yechashiv. Even if you have a nudnik who keeps his mouth shut, he'll be thought to be a wise person. Very, very cool. Now just for a few minutes, we're going to get back to Kodshim. Enjoy it. This is going to be the last bit of Kodshim that we're going to get to for a little bit, I think. Well, who knows? Yoma, I think, is all about those, whatever. But we've been in deep in Kodshim land. So I think we're going to take a respite from Kodshim land for a little bit, but not before we learn this Gemara. Let's say that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. How come? Our Mishnah had said, I think I probably skipped a few words. Just that little 2 dots thing. Right? Our Mishnah had said that if you have Reuven and Shimon, Reuven got a Korban Pesach, Shimon got a Korban Pesach, and they got mixed together. So the suggestion of the Mishnah is, okay, what you do is, you go and you find somebody to join Reuven, you find somebody to join Shimon, and then Reuben and Shimon switch places and they make a stipulation. So let's say that this Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda. How come? Because we learn in a brayso that if the house will, we understood it to mean, the Pashup Pshat is that if there are not enough mouths in the house to eat the Korban Pesach, so then bring on your neighbors. But Rabbi Yehuda learns from there. Rabbi Yehuda says that you can keep on leaving the Korban Pesach as long as one of the originals remains. Okay, so if you have 5 people and they're all coming together to to join together on a Korban Pesach, great. And if everybody wants to abort and go elsewhere, that's also fine. Just make sure that one of the original participants always remains. If it gets to a situation where all of the original participants are gone and everybody here that's currently appointed on the Korban Pesach was not there initially, they're newcomers, that's no good. You need one of the original people from the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi says, look, the main thing is to make sure that you don't have a Korban Pesach that does not have any owners at all. As long as it has owners, do they have to be the original owners? Who cares? Just make sure that there was never any point where this Korban Pesach had no owners. But as long as, let's say you had a group of 5 people and they decided they want a different Korban Pesach, if they find a different group first and then they leave, that's fine. But if they first leave and then find a different group, that wouldn't be okay. So Rabbi Yehuda is makbid that Yutaka need to have one of the original owners dartin, whereas Rabbi Yossi says that no, they don't have to be the original owners per se, but there has to always be owners from the time that the Korban Pesach is set aside. So now, how come our Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda? Because in our Mishnah, we said that when you have Reuven and Shimon, and their Korban Pesach gets confused, gets mixed up, so then the solution that the Mishnah suggests is just bring, Reuven should chop another guy, Shimon should chop another guy, and then Reuven and Shimon switch places, and they then make a Tanai. So Reuven goes to Shimon's Korban Pesach and he says, look, if this animal in front of us was really mine, so then Givaldig. But if it's not, well then I'm going to join you on this animal. The problem is that the fellow that Reuven is saying this to wasn't there originally. Wasn't one of the original people on the Pesach. Shimon just brought him in so that they could do the swap, but he wasn't one of the originals. The only original was Shimon. Shimon now switched to Reuven's Korban. So, since it sounds like in our Mishnah we cannot have any guarantee that one of the original owners is going to be on this animal, so it can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says you would need to have one of the originals. Rabbi Yochanan afilu teim Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan says, look, you can even say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. How? Well, Kivdam Rabbi Yehuda in Shochten es Pesach ala Yochid. Well, we learned recently that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not allowed to slaughter Korban Pesach for just one person. So then, Memele meikar la'amnu yachvinu bahade koi uchechad mibnei chabur adami. So obviously, if this is according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't slaughter Korban Pesach for just one person, and therefore you could say that the Mishnah is Taka Rabbi Yehuda. What does it mean that you had Reuven and Shimon had a Korban Pesach? Obviously, they weren't just the only person on the Korban Pesach, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't just slaughter Korban Pesach for one person. So obviously, Reuven had another person and Shimon had another person. They didn't just chop the new person when they realized that their Korban got mixed up. No, they had already brought him on beforehand, because you can't slaughter Korban Pesach for only one person. So therefore, this whole Reuven and Shimon switching places and then making a deal with the other person, that other person was already one of the originals. He's not just somebody that they're bringing last minute. Rav Ashi masnisan amideka, says Rav Ashi, you can also say, look, that our Mishnah infers that you can imply from our Mishnah that it's Taka Rabbi Yehuda. How come? The Mishnah says, V'chein chomish chabur shel chamisha chamisha. The Mishnah had said, and you do the same thing if you have 5 chaburas, and each chabura has 5 people in it, and all of the korbans got mixed together. So what you do is, you say each chabura sends a representative to each of the other 5, and now each chabura now is made up of one representative from each of the 5 chaburas. Chamisha in aval chamisha v'arba lo. I don't know what I just read, but chamisha shel chamisha in aval shel chamisha v'arba lo. I hope I read that right. Chamish chabura shel chamisha. No, I think I read that wrong. V'chein chamish chabur shel chamisha in aval shel chamisha v'arba lo. I don't know if I read it right. I don't know if I read it wrong. However, what it's saying is this, that it's specifically 5 groups of 5 people in it. You can't have 5 groups of 5 people in one group with 4. That wouldn't work. My love. Lav mishum de lo payish chad mibnei chabur gabe shmamina. Wow, I feel like I read that terribly. But anyways, the point is this, that if you have 5 groups, and one of them only has, so 5 groups, each group has 5 people in it. One group, however, only has 4 people. All their Korban pesachs get mixed together. You run into a problem, because if, one of the groups is only going to have 4, what if the Korban pesach doesn't actually belong to any of them? Well, then they're going to be in trouble. So why don't you just grab somebody later, and just, add them to the group? No, it's because you can't add somebody after the fact. You have to be an original. And therefore, it must be that the Mishnah is Taka Rabbi Yehuda, and you need one of the original ones to be included in the Korban. And that is why he says, Davka, if you have 5 groups that each have 5 people in it, but if you have a group that has 4 people, you're going to be stuck because it's too late. You can't have any of the originals now. It's too late for that. And what if the Korban Pesach belongs to that group that is not represented there? So that would be a problem. So you could say it's Rabbi Yehuda. Hadron olach mishaya tami uslika la pesach sheni. We'll come back to you. He who was impure and uslika la. I don't know, what does it mean? We've completed you. We have gone up from you. Solik, to go out. I don't know. Pesach sheni, the second part of Masechta Pesachim. Wow. Now we begin arvei pesachim. Pesachim samuch lemincha lo yochel adam ad shetechshach. So an erev Pesach. It's interesting. It's called arvei pesachim, right? But the first word is actually erev. What does Tosfos say? I don't know. You guys seen an arvei nicha? What's the base? Kmo arvei pesachim da alma. If you guys seen an erev, achikamer erev sheshochtem bo pesachim. It's talking about erev Pesach. What do you want me to tell you? It's talking about the 14th day of Nisan. So erev pesachim samuch lemincha. So on the 14th day of Nisan, erev Pesach, samuch lemincha, close to mincha. Everybody remembers, of course, from the 4th parak of Masechta Brachos, that the time to daven mincha is from 9.5 hours into the day. In our perfect day, 3:30 in the afternoon. Samuch lemincha would be a half an hour before that. So from 9 hours. So lo yochel adam ad shetechshach, don't eat anymore until the evening, so that you'll have an appetite for the chametz, right? Whoa! I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea over here. People are going to start spreading rumors about Babylon Talmud. No, I didn't mean chametz, I meant matzah. So you the matzah with an appetite. Says the Rashbam. Oh, it's another big chiddush over here. When it comes to arvei pesachim, you learn it with the Rashbam. You don't learn it with Rashi. I don't know why exactly. I asked my friend yesterday. He didn't know why either. Is it because Rashi is incomplete, or is it because it's not authentic? I'm not sure. But the minig, I think, is to learn arvei pesachim with the Rashbam. So says the Rashbam, K'dei sheyochel matzah shel mitzvah l'teyavon, mishum hider mitzvah. Woof! So that you should eat the matzah on Pesach night with an appetite, because that is a hider mitzvah, to eat it with an appetite and not just when you're already full. Wah! Afilu ani should be Yisrael liyochal ad sheyesev. Even if you have a poor person, he also needs to feel like he's free on Seder night. So he shouldn't eat until he leans. He should be leaning on when he eats at the Seder. And if you have a person who's reliant upon communal funds, so the gabbai tzedakah, the people allocating the food and the meals, should provide 4 cups of wine. And as the Rashbam points out, what it's saying, the reason why it says that the Gabbai Tzedakah should provide this is because that's sort of the general way to say it. But even if the Gabbai Tzedakah, I don't know, the people in charge of allocating the charity, don't provide him with this, well then he has to make sure he gets it other ways. He's got to do whatever he can to get arba koses shel yain, to get 4 glasses of wine. And this is even talking about a poor person who is so poor that he has to take from the tamchoy. I think we learned in Masechta Erevin that a person's considered, right, if a person has Mozen Shtei Sudis, then he's not considered, right, he doesn't take from the tamchoy. The tamchoy is reserved for the poorest of the poor. Even the poorest of the poor need to do whatever they can to ensure that they have 4 glasses of wine on Seder night. Lemaise, I think it's Purim in Yerushalayim today. So, Mistame also dartin, they're having 4 glasses of wine. L'chol hapachot, at least, Mistame. Zog the Gemara, my area, arvei pesachim afilu arvei shabbos v'yom tovim nami. What's the big chiddush about erev Pesach? Erev Shabbos also, erev Yom Tov also. You don't eat from the afternoon and onwards. The Tanya, as we learn in the price, we have a price that says a person should not eat on erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tov from mincha and onwards. So that he comes into Shabbos with an appetite. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi, you can eat whatever you want until the night. So, what's the big chiddush about erev Pesach? If you're Rabbi Yossi, so you eat whatever you want. If you're Rabbi Yehuda, so Manishtana erev Pesach from erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tov. You also don't eat from the afternoon and onwards. Says Rav Huna, yeah, this is Taka Rabbi Yossi. Meaning, that's the Chiddush, right? Says Rav Huna, that when Rabbi Yossi says that you can eat until it gets dark, that's by erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tov. However, on erev Pesach, because of the mitzvah, because of the obligation to eat matzah, then we want to stop eating already from mincha and onward, so you eat matzah with an appetite. Fine. So that is Rav Huna's answer. That this mission is Dafka Rabbi Yossi, who says that in general on erev Pesach and on erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tov, you can eat all the way up until it gets dark. By erev Pesach, however, stop eating from samuch lemincha. Rav Papa Amar says Rav Papa, Afilu Teimu Rabbi Yehuda. You can even say that the mission is Rabbi Yehuda. How? So what's the difference between Pesach versus Shabbos and Yom Tov? Hasan bar v'Shabbosos Rabbi Tovim ben Amincha u'Lamaila Huda Aser Samuch lemincha Shari Aval be'erev Pesach Afilu Samuch lemincha Nami Aser. That if you look carefully, notice that our mission says erev Pesachim Samuch lemincha, close to mincha. Even from half an hour beforehand, don't eat. Whereas that Brisa said, from mincha and onwards. So it's very subtle, but Rav Papa points out that you can even say that our mission is Rabbi Yehuda, that when it comes to erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tov, it's from mincha and onwards, from 9.5 hours into the day and onwards. And erev Pesach, it's a shtickle before that, it's from 9 hours and onwards, from a little bit before mincha. So Rav Papa says you can even say it's Rabbi Yehuda. Friends, we're going to stop here. Just got our speaking of appetites, we're going to whet our appetite for Perek Arvei Pesachim, and we will pick up from here tomorrow. Friends, what did we learn today? We wrapped up the 9th Perek of Masechta Pesachim. We referenced the discussion that we had at the end of the daf yesterday about Reuven and Shimon, whose Korban Pesachs get mixed up together, and the Mishnah suggested that they just bring on another person, and then they each one brings on another person, then they switch around. So we want to say that this cannot be Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says, well, you have to have one of the original members of the group, to which we then said, no, you can even say it's Taka Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds, after all, that you don't slaughter Korban Pesach for just one person, and therefore, Mistama, this person he's bringing is not just a random person he's bringing now. Mistama, he was already there from the beginning, and therefore it's an original person. As we saw, machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you need to have one of the original people from the Korban Pesach still part of the group at the time of Shechita, whereas according to Rabbi Yossi, he says no, you just have to have anybody as part of the Pesach, but you don't necessarily need one of the originals. And then we began the parak of arvei pesachim, where we say that you do not eat on erev Pesach from mincha and onwards, and we're trying to figure out who is the author of our Mishnah, because after all, Rabbi Yehuda says that on any erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tif, you don't eat in the afternoon. So what's special about erev Pesach? Rav Huna says, well, the author of our Mishnah is actually Rabbi Yossi, who says that in general, on erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tif, you can eat all afternoon, but on erev Pesach, davka, stop eating in the afternoon so you can eat matzah with an appetite. Rav Papa says, no, you can even say that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. There's a very subtle difference, which is that in erev Pesach, you stop eating from already a half an hour before mincha, whereas on erev Shabbos and erev Yom Tif, it's just from mincha and weiter. Friends, I hope you enjoyed Daf Tzadi Tes of Masechta Pesachim. Chill out. Cheers. Peace. Sayonara.